Hey everyone, I'm plugging away at the 2025 Game of the Year video, but in the meantime, the Steam Next Fest for February just wrapped up, and I thought I'd talk about some of the highlights. No other setup needed, let's dive right in. Alabaster Dawn is one of the brightest shining stars in the deep blue sky, an action RPG from the developers of Crosscode that keeps the up-tempo combat, dials the puzzling back by about 25%, and fills the space with some of the nicest pixel art you'll ever see from an indie team. The weapons are more conventional, but you can switch between them on the fly, whether it's a hammer for slamming down armored enemies, or a crossbow for picking off enemies on ledges. I loved Crosscode and its puzzles, and Alabaster Dawn is on the fast track to being a top 5 game when it releases in early access later this year. The voxel-based Emery Hearts is a similarly impressive ARPG, albeit more along the lines of Zelda or Alundra, with a fixed top-down perspective and dungeons with new tools to find. I don't normally like voxel art, but the environmental detail on display is sometimes jaw-dropping, and that extends to the whole presentation, which has a ton of professional polish to it. Had either of these demos released in the 2000s, you'd assume they were made by studios of 50+ people. Emery Hearts is from a solo developer. Absolutely wild. Now, thinking of puzzles, people who watched my 2024 Game of the Year video may recall my lamenting of the poor decisions that led the needlessly massively multiplayer puzzler Islands of Insight to its tragic early demise. Wisely, that same developer has lowered their ambitions for their next project, the Artisan of Glimmith. It still fits into that same logic-solving space as most of IOI's Nurikabe puzzles, but it doesn't waste money on an elaborate overworld or half-baked MMO features. It's just a pure puzzler, and that's definitely their best strength, offering a lot of various alterations on the basic archetype, much like The Witness did, sans P-Jar. Mystery of the Malign is what you would get if a time traveler went back to 1998 and, instead of doing literally anything to save us from our current hell, found a Nancy Drew fan game creator and showed them the case of the Golden Idol. This is a charmingly ugly game, reminiscent of a bygone era of PC gaming where level geometry was about as complex as a Malm table from IKEA, and the only concept of a quality of life amenity was a volume slider. I don't see these things derogatorily though. I find it quaint and quite enjoyable to trek around these VRML-ass spaces and dig up all sorts of clues to ask witnesses about, as I piece together this unusual supernatural story. In a similar vein, the Ratline is a deduction game that involves uprooting a massive smuggling conspiracy of Nazis trying to sneak back into society in the 1970s. You'll be given photographs and documents with the ability to call businesses via Rolodex as well as look up information in the library archives. Much like Case of the Golden Idol, characters from an earlier case will show up in later cases, so you can actually go back to those previous cases and pin evidence to your current case to help find the most up-to-date information on the suspects. If you like the recent rash of rule discovery games, then there's 2 demos that'll surely get all of your neurons firing. Tiling Town has you laying down paths to connect roads, starting you off with just a couple of tiles and slowly unlocking more and more as you solve each area. At first you only need to connect one road to another, but later you'll need to fully fill out every tile without breaking the rules, and then additional mechanics get sprinkled in even later than that. I do like what I've seen, although I'd say that the demo area was pretty linear, and there were certain times where you had no choice but to complete a specific region before you'd be given a tile that would open up other paths. Meanwhile, remember what I said about Nurikabe puzzles? Well, DEG is like a seemingly endless fractal of Nurikabe logic grids, with a rule set you'll have to figure out as you solve it. The main core is building a road that satisfies the many numerical requirements along 3x3 grids without a break in the connection, but that only takes you about a half hour in, and maybe 10% of the demo content. It may look unassuming, but this is a sicko's game. It is divinely structured, with completion pickups that slowly fill out your guidebook as well as reveal stairways to different floors. I spent around 4 hours on the demo and maybe saw a third of the demo's puzzles, so suffice to say, I'm gonna feel very stupid when the full version comes out, and puzzle fans are gonna love this one. Towers of Scale may look like some kind of MS-DOS Ultima knockoff nonsense, but it's actually, still a knockoff, but of Magic Tower, or a more recent example, Tactical Nexus. The idea is to take RPG trappings and place them on a strategic resource management game. While some games in this subgenre overwhelm you with stats to keep track of, Towers of Scale uses just one.
The power.
The power? I like it.
As long as your power level is above your enemies, you'll defeat them and then lose or gain power based on enemy alignments. There are doors that have your energy, as well as light key doors, dark key doors, and certain enemies that can only be defeated with single-use magical sword pickups. So it's all about planning your best route through each tower, and eventually optimizing your route to get the highest score, which will reward you with gems to unlock special bonus doors in each tower's basement. If you're into this kind of game, it'll probably hook you like it did me, but I also think it's a very good introductory game for people who have never played these, I don't know what you would call them, math crawlers? Is math crawlers anything? After learning that Brian David Gilbert was involved in the writing, I had to try out Starship Troopers Ultimate Bug War, a retro shooter set in large open stages by the developers of Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun. Bolt Gun had some fabulous gunplay, but pretty confusing level design, so I get the switch to more city district-sized stages. That does make things feel a little less focused though, as there's not so much to do between the objective points on the map, and stages are not as secret-rich as a traditional Doom-like. Still, the guns feel good, it's fun to rip and tear through giant bugs, and I like the ability to airdrop ammo and health at any time as long as you charge the meter up. A couple of interface dramas caught my attention as well. Desktop Explorer has you exploring your uncle's old computer and solving puzzles left behind by your father as you search for answers to the tragedy that took him from you at a young age, all while a clippy little shit patronizes the fuck out of you. These puzzles often require thinking outside of the box, looking at source code or finding hidden files, and installing apps and games that reveal more secrets. Then there's Lost Wiki, a Macintosh simulation that presents a fictional Wikipedia covering an old Eastern European town with supernatural secrets. The filling in of the blanks is simple enough, just dragging a hyperlink over to the input box, but of course the real fun is clicking on all the supplemental links and getting deep into a rat hole just like the real Wikipedia. It's a shame the full game seems like it'll be relatively short, because I'd love a huge fictional Wikipedia to surf through. Alright, just a few more to go over and we'll wrap up. The Big Hollow 1982 has you observing different crime scene photographs and deducing what happened as well as whether they're connected to the same assailant based on behavioral science. Puzzle Spy International's demo is just the single puzzle, but the aesthetic and cleverness on display make it pretty intriguing regardless. Dungeons of Dusk is a spin-off of the indie FPS classic that takes direct inspiration from Doom RPG while also acknowledging the growth and amenities that have come with the genre over the past 15 years. I enjoyed what I played, though I think the movement and mapping are not quite as crisp as my beloved Etrian Odyssey. As for the demos that didn't work for me, Connected Clue is about a private detective caught in a bank robbery that could turn out to be something much bigger, but its isometric anime aesthetic and open-world navigation won't be to everyone's tastes, and there's a little bit of jank to it as well. The Eternal Life of Goldman is definitely a gorgeously animated spectacle, and I'm glad classical animation can make its way into more games without just imitating Cuphead, but I found the level design to be pretty basic and not as exciting as the visuals themselves, which at times can often get too busy to parse. Now, one of the best things about this video is that everything I've talked about today is still available to try out on Steam, so you can demo these games and tell me if I'm wrong right in the comments. But hopefully you like them instead, and give the games a wishlist to help them out. And if you want to help me out, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell to get notified when my Game of the Year video drops. I'm also doing cartoons again over on a second channel called Animation Wilson. If you want to see Bonus Stage Remastered or other series I might be working on in the future, just head over there, there's a link in the description. And then of course there's a Patreon where you can see work-in-progress versions of my cartoons and videos early. And all this stuff helps me stay afloat amidst very turbulent seas. Speaking of which, special shout out to my indie darlings and channel members: Game Trekker, Luke Bisping, Rhea C, Rob Ska, Sable Cal, Thumpus, Tony Domenico, Tyler McBride, Zarashi, Saturn Bomber, A to the J 3914, and Scarshell. That's all for today. Until next time, you'll find me in another castle.